Hey guys, Nate Clear, your host, along with Nick Krakosky for Non-Del Influencers podcast. And today we have Matt Coles, Plaza Home Mortgage, the innovator of Minute with Matt. Matt, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys. This is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you agreeing to be on the show. So this show is for anybody, whether you're investor account executive, you are a broker, you're a correspondent, you're a branch manager, you have your own shop. We're going to be talking a lot today about organizing your week, organizing your day, what we do and what we've found and what we've seen others do to be successful. So please, guys, be sure that at the end of this podcast to join the Non-Del Influencers podcast, nondelinfluencerspodcast.com, and all materials to help you build your day, et cetera, are nondelinfluencers.com as well. So let's get started. Matt, if you don't mind, I want to pick on Nick a little bit here. Nick's managing around 200 accounts here for FirstFunding warehouse lending perspective. Those are lender accounts, generally dealing with owners of various size lenders.
Yep.
And somehow he's not resting on his laurels. He's still out there hitting the pavement and bringing on new accounts. So, Nick, what do you do to set up your week? Is there a regimen from hey, Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do? What does that look like?
Yeah. So certainly got a schedule throughout the week of Mondays. Well, first things first, get into the office, and every day is clear out your inbox from whatever came out the night before. Right. That's always number one, and then get your legal pad or however you need to do it. Right, and just write down what are your things that need to get done today. What are your goals that need to get done today? On top of what are your weekly goals.
Mm-hmm.
So typically Mondays, right? It's always a good start to the week. Plan out your week. Touch everything that's on your desk, right? Whether that be applications in process, whether that be approvals that you're waiting for, you're waiting on conditions for other things. So typically I'm just going through that. Anything that I've been working on that's in process, that's my Monday. I'm going to touch every single one of those. And once I'm done with that, then I can move on to other prospecting or follow-ups. Tuesdays, Thursdays, those are outbound calls, prospecting and outbound calls. Those are just, hey, let's smile and dial all day, get on the phones, hammer out, hopefully 80 to 100 calls if you can, right? Wednesdays, similar, right? Just make sure you get all your paperwork. Is kind of a paperwork catch-up day.
Usually those, I end up finding those to be more hosting trainings, hosting webinars, doing stuff like we're doing today.
Trainings, webinars is big, and then just kind of a lot of follow-up with current clientele. Just, hey, everything going well? Do we need a little insight on the system? I see you got some new team members. Let's bring them in. Let's do a refresher course. So just staying on top of that, make sure you're touching your current customer base. Right. And then Friday, similar to that Wednesday, right? Just, making sure that everything through the week followed up as planned. Did you miss anything? Kind of touch base on anything that you may have missed or didn't get to, and really just setting up your success for the next week. All right. What do I need to get done? That way next week I can walk into the office with a clean slate and do this all over again.
And Matt,
Nick, Nick, I want to follow up on something if you don't mind. Let me ask you a question. So 80 to 100 phone calls in this work environment, rough percentage. How much time are you getting voicemail?
Oh man, probably 80%. 80% voicemail.
Right. So
right.
that
have a quick email that's already preset, right? Just copy and paste, send it off, and move on.
Right. So that 80%, right? You got if you're going to get voicemail, on your majority of your outbound sales calls, right? One of the things that you need to do to pick up time and to be efficient is to have a script for your voicemail saying, hey, it's Nick at FirstFunding. Give me a call back. Doesn't really drive the enthusiasm to be like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to Nick, right? So you want to make sure to have a script ready to rock and roll about a theme or something that might be going on, drive that return phone call. That's one of the most important things, I think, for everyone in our world. For outbound sales calls, it is very standard to get voicemail these days, and to leave a basic, hey, call me back, doesn't work anymore.
No. Yeah, and certainly, there's a lot I touch on. I'll touch on past notes, just depending on, I like to make notes in the CRM of, hey, conversations we had in the past. Hey, look, I know we were talking about this 3 months ago, so on and so forth. Right. But yeah, I certainly agree. Having a script, it helps. And I think if I maybe had a better script, I'd do a little bit more callback sometime.
No, I think, I mean, you got the template for the outbound message, right, that you're going to send via email as a follow-up. Nate and I always, make cheesy sales calls with each other. It's one of the fun things we like to do. And I've been putting into practice, hey, you were on my mind and I read an article. And then I send them an article that has nothing to do with anything that we've ever talked about. But it gives me a reason to follow up with them, right? And it's just a cool, unique thing that you're going to try to want to position yourself as. So you're like, oh, this guy was thinking about me and he wants me to read this article that he shared with me. So just, having a script or having something that drives that phone call back is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, a lot of the times you have that, right? And you do that for 1 week. And then you go back into your old ways, right? Of the convenient, well, I got to do the activity. Number one, Nick, your relentlessness on staying on the phones and doing the follow-up. I mean, we preach in and out, right? Is that you've got to get to at least 12 no's before you actually know it's a no, right? If you don't get your touch count, not 12 no's, 12 touches, right? Before you're going to get a yes or a no in most of these sales cycles. And so if you can't get those 12 in, then you're not going to be successful. But if you can drive to getting more of those decisions done using tools like you, Matt, not that you're a tool, Matt, but the tools that you're putting forth.
I think the jury's still out on that. I would say, Nate, that is one of the most important things. And over here at Plaza Home Mortgage, we get a lot of inbound opportunities, right? We have an award-winning training program at Plaza Home Mortgage, outbound training for our customers, right? And so when someone signs up for a training with Plaza Home Mortgage, that is my sales team blessing to schedule the next 10 or 12 touches with them right from that touch point, right? Thank you for attending the training. A week later, did you learn anything from the training? A week later, did you put into practice anything from the training? 4 weeks later, did you also know that we did this? 5 weeks later, hey, it's been a while since you've attended that training. Is there anything else you want to learn? Like, you got to keep that cycle up. You can't just let 2 or 3 touches go by without anything happening, right? If nothing happens after 2 or 3 touches, that you got to continue that cycle. You got to be able to plan out 8, 10, 12 touches in order to be an effective salesperson and have effective follow-up.
Yeah.
So Matt, real quick, I mean, too, on scheduling out those after those trainings, are you guys, putting a campaign together that's kind of help automating some of that response or some of those touches, or is this really dependent upon your team to, make sure that I've got something on my books every week to call this person? Or is it more
I work in 2 different CRMs. So one CRM is for outbound sales recruiting for hiring, right? So that's my management CRM. Then I also have a CRM that's for clients, right? Brokers, that's our customers, brokers, loan officers, that side of it. Both of those have a feature where I'm able to set a reminder on a weekly basis to contact this person. Okay. So when I wake up in the morning, I am a huge fan of crossing things off of my to-do list. So this morning when I woke up and I opened up my management CRM, I had 7 phone calls that I had to make today that were already laid out for me. And I just checked the boxes, call those 7 people, and I have finished my follow-up for that particular day. Same thing with the loan officers. I can schedule it on a quarterly follow-up, which is way too long for a salesperson, monthly, weekly, bi-weekly, however you want to set it up so that you're constantly staying in touch. And honestly, Nick, to your point and to your credit, there's no way that you can be expected to remember to follow up with 200 shops on a regular basis unless you had a system in process. If you're doing it without a system, you're going to let things fall through the cracks.
Of course.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that time and time again. Matt, you've been here in our offices. We've got a relatively young sales team, right? And so there's a lot of benefits, right? We can train them the right way. We can get them up to speed, et cetera. But it's amazing when you see folks that start transitioning from, the 20 or 30 that they can keep in their mind, and they're not necessarily using all of the tools that have been built out, or the processes that have been established or following a weekly guide plan, because it's like, oh no, I can keep managing this. I can keep managing this. And then before you know it, they run completely out of touch with what needs to happen, right? And they're constantly forgetting things, or they're missing opportunities. And so 100%, I mean, we're right now in the process of revamping our CRM for that exact thing. We want to be able to then start tracking, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So great, maybe we are getting a ton of calls out, and I'm hearing folks on the phone all the time. But to your point, maybe it's the scripting, right? Maybe, we got a bunch of apps sent, but then our follow-up and what we're talking about on the phone isn't resonating with them. So we're not transitioning those into new accounts. How are you guys managing? Because Matt, you manage a much larger team than I do across multiple states, et cetera. How do you find, from managing a team perspective, what do you find that works, whether systematically, one-on-one meeting? What do you see?
It's Nate, you and I have talked about this, and we've shared stories about this. It's evolved for me greatly since I first became a manager.
Yeah.
My head could not fit through the door when I first became a sales manager. I was basically telling people just to do what I do. Look at how successful I am, right? Like, what an arrogant, stupid statement to make, because everyone does things differently. And really, I get to know the salespeople, what works for them, and how to best position myself to be able to support them and their needs. Okay. Now, there are structures that I need people to follow. There are things that we need to do, tools in place that we need them to use. But not everyone's going to get the same value out of every single tool. And so if you see resistance, right, this is one of the things I've learned over years of management. If you see resistance, they're not resisting to be difficult. They're resisting because the process or the tool you put in place doesn't work for them. So you really got to put your ears and eyes out and say, okay, well, we have this tool. Let's use this tool. How can I help you customize it or figure out a better process for you in order for it to be effective? As a manager, I'm not asking my salespeople to follow up to keep their thumb on them. I'm asking them to follow up because I do believe it breeds success, right? And so I want all my salespeople to be successful, but I can't coach the same way to each one, if that makes good sense to you guys.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think we've got, something similar to that. And certainly in, kind of from a warehouse lending perspective, when we're onboarding these new companies and we're hearing more from, the managers that are either bringing on new hires or they've got an existing book. I mean, one of our previous guests, Rosegate and those guys over there, we were chatting with them. It was like, how are you finding success among your loan officers? You guys, you're setting a pretty high bar, but naturally you're not bringing on a hire if you don't think that they're qualified, right? So I mean, that's something like they should be excited about, that, hey, I believe in you, I think that you can hit these numbers, etc. And what we find kind of in a lot of the more successful shops that are adding loan officers to their roster, not just scatter shooting, is that they're providing what you're talking about, which is more of this kind of one-on-one, let me help understand your method of, A, going to market, B, what you believe your value proposition is, whether it be, loan officer to real estate agent, loan officer to, to investors, to direct to borrowers, to friends and family, to builders, right? However that works, right? So that they have the tools and products and the expertise to know about that. And what you're saying is that your account executives, essentially, they have those different type of value props that they're going after a certain market share, or what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to use the two of you as a perfect example. I know you guys pretty well. Your style is not the same as Nick, and Nick's style is not the same as yours, right? I mean, your guys' style is very, very unique, and it's really cool to see how successful both of you are with your each unique way that you deliver that. So if I see somebody who really, I have an AE on my team that's really charged up in front of customers, I would put him in front of any customer that I work with, and I know he'll knock it out of the park. Others are a little bit more technical, like to sit back, maybe analyze some of the needs of the customer before they go out. So you really just want to make sure you're customizing that. And as a manager, it's my job, I believe, to recognize what their strengths are and help them flush that out so that they're comfortable bringing that to their customer base.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Nick, what are you seeing now? I mean, we've had a couple of really interesting meetings with some guys that are seeing some meteoric growth.
Yeah.
What are they doing? I mean, there's two things, right? That they're finding that growth, at least in the units and the volumes that we're able to fund for them. I think like one of them's got to be recruiting.
I think recruiting is really the biggest name of the game right now. I mean, we've got lenders who are looking to actually increase their facilities right now. It's not their current loan officers that are, hey, you know what? We just all of a sudden just stumbled into this real estate office and we're getting all the business.
Yeah.
No, they're out there, fighting tooth and nail for loan officers.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what they're doing, how they're organizing and getting set up? I know we don't want to give too many trade secrets away, but kind of getting close. I mean, some of them are fairly, I don't know, like, duh, of course, why didn't I think of this, moments.
As far as how they're growing?
Yeah. How they're going out there and implementing the process so that they can consistently be recruiting in the markets that they're in.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, really just the organizing of their day-to-day. And once they can figure out, okay, let's put this process and procedures in place of this non-del channel.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get all this figured out first, right? Once I've got this running well, then that management, that CEO, whoever that may be, that's going to be the face of the company, that's going to be doing recruiting, can step back and let his company work a little bit, and then just go out to the market. And I think it's really just they're attacking different realtor bases. We had a good meeting with somebody last week, right? They're focusing and honing in on large, successful real estate groups and seeing, hey, who are your branches? Or are you guys interested in the mortgage industry? Do you have somebody here that would be an LO? And then net branch those guys out as well. And just run that net branching model at, however they need to in the compliance that needs to be.
Yeah. And one of the big things that they had brought up was how systematically, right? They're not scatter shooting.
Mm-mm.
No, they've got the methodology in the MSAs that are, in the market groups that they know to be successful, to have more competitive rates than anything that those real estate groups are having, in targeting them on a quarterly basis in order to bring them in.
Yeah.
And that's bred a lot of success for these guys, as opposed to, some of the other lenders that we hear about, and they're just any real estate agent that'll answer the phone, they're trying to talk to them, and what they're finding is they haven't done any due diligence. They don't have any process around actually investigating to see how many agents, how many loans are those agents even closing, et cetera.
Yep. And then you've always got to have the value add, right? I mean, with realtors, I don't know how much you deal with realtors, Matt, but I mean, you've got to have a value add, right? I mean, what are you going to bring to the table so that we can do this business together?
Yep.
The days of selling best rates, quick service, I mean, that's the get-in price these days, right? I mean, that's basic sales 101. And without having a value add, it's, you guys were talking about recruiting. It's like you see people that plant seeds and then expect the fruit to be there the next day, right? Like, no, it takes time. And recruiting is not, hey, I know you're looking, why don't you come over here? Recruiting is like, what are your needs? What are you getting provided at your company that you love today? What are you not getting today that you don't like? And really establishing that and going, really in on the relationship, rather than just like, oh, I want you to do business with me today. No, you haven't done anything to show anything of value yet. You got to deliver that value constantly. Now, I think what you hit on, Nick, is you need to know what value they're looking for. And I'm a big believer in social media, right? Social media has drawn down the need for anyone to try to guess what their values are or what the needs are of the customer, because they're putting it out there. Social media, if you're a loan officer targeting realtors love Instagram. They're on Instagram all the time. They're telling you exactly what they're selling, how they're selling, and who they're selling to. Use social media to your empowerment in order to say, okay, this particular realtor likes to work in this neighborhood at this price point. Know that going into it, rather than shooting blind from the hip.
No, and Matt, you and I have done this before, and I'm just thinking back to some of the calls that we did out in the desert, and it's amazing how much information just we as professionals put out there on the internet, and how quickly a Google search with that person's name and get mortgage, warehouse, secondary market, right?
Yeah.
Pulls up exactly that person, gives you their full life story, tells you what college they went to, how many kids, their dogs' names, right? And now all of a sudden, through your, line of questioning, you're able to bring up a lot of the similarities and things that that they're already interested in, and have that meaningful conversation. And I think that goes back to, planning your day, planning your meeting.
When you know what to talk about, or is it even a qualified individual?
Right. Yeah. Is it even somebody that's worth talking to, or that we're going to have anything, or should we actually just stick straight to talking business because we have nothing in similar or in common? Or, right, Matt, to your point, that person isn't a good fit for my JD Kutry. This one's better for, so-and-so that's more analytical, more introverted, right? Like, there's also
there's no need for you. Well, first of all, about the social media, right? And I always talk about this, is be sincere about it, right? Like if the realtor loves cats and you absolutely can't stand cats, don't wear a I love cats shirt to your meeting, right? I mean, you got to be sincere about the things that you're talking about. But society has given us the right to look people up, and people put everything that they do, including last night's dinner, out on social media these days. And then second of all, you're absolutely right. It's also a good identifier if you're a good fit for that particular person or contact, right? Like Plaza Home Mortgage, we do a lot of great things at Plaza. There are some loan officers that just don't see the value in what we do. So why am I to continue to run my head into the wall if I can't show them the value that I have? Why continue to down that road if they're not ever going to accept the value that we deliver, right?
Man, that's a huge point, right? That's a huge point. And just being able to understand where you can fit, and where it's going to work or not going to work. Speaking of social profiles, I think I saw something in there that you may or may not be the best breakdancer.
Not breakdancer. Breakdancing, you can't really breakdance when you get to my age, but I do know how to cut a rug every once in a while. If anyone ever sees me at a conference, we'll do the shuffle. We'll be able to dance it down. I got some moves.
Well, guys, we're coming up on our 25 minutes or 30-minute mark here. Any closing remarks on things that we should consider, kind of takeaways for planning your day, planning your week?
I think, really just consistency. And you mentioned it earlier, you can do it. You can do it for 2 weeks. You can do it for 3 weeks, but you've got to stay consistent. You've got to keep your head down and just get to work, right? Because as long as you can stay consistent with that schedule and stay consistent in those follow-ups and make sure you're sticking to it, you're going to reap the benefits one day. No matter how long it takes. It's just sometimes it's quicker for others. But anyone out there even just getting started in this industry, just stick to that schedule, right? Get your calls in, get your meeting set, keep at it, and it'll come to you.
Yeah. I know from the management standpoint, hitting numbers is a big takeaway for me for being able to effectively manage. I don't care how you get to your numbers, whether it's app sent, app received, we got agreements out, you've activated accounts, touches with account executives. I don't care how you get there, right? Just these are the requirements that we have. They're pretty basic. There's a way to get there through a weekly basis so that you get to the end number at the end of the month. And then really we can dive into process, scripting, etc. If those numbers aren't coming through, right? That means that me as the manager figuring out the best way to manage you, that's where I've got to work on it. I've got to help get you there, right? Otherwise, the rest of it's going to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I first started in sales, someone said, write down your to-do list and put a $ next to the ones that are actually going to make you money. Right. And sometimes it's as simple as that. Try to eliminate the time sucks that you have in your day. Make sure that you have goals and make sure that you're structured enough to have follow-up to achieve those goals. It's really as simple as that. I mean, obtaining and reaching a goal is pretty simple if you just have structure behind it. Really is. It's as easy as doing that. And if you do that, you're already beating about 98% of the people out in the world today.
100%. I think I saw some stat like 80% of sales folks don't even follow up after the first call.
Yeah.
So it's like you're already there if you just do these little things the right way.
Just reach out.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you being on with us, Matt. We're certainly going to invite you to future sessions. It's always good to see your smiling face.
I'll dance for you guys.
I want to thank everybody for joining us here on our podcast. Remember, please click the subscribe button. We're on all of the major platforms. Visit us at non-delegated.com. Also, for any help on brokers making the transition, independent originators branching out and going out on their own, non-delinfluencers.com is a wealth of information. You can sign up for all of our getting started and all of the additional materials that we have on there. So thanks for joining us. See us next time. Thanks.